Why don't we start with you, Suzy? What do you think?
I think, look, obesity is costing our country a lot of money and it's costing lives and also people's mental health. Do you know what I mean? And I just think, I know some people think it's like a little bit of a cheat, but we all cheat in different ways at different things. And I think this is important because I think there is a bit of a justice thing here, because ultimately, if you're really wealthy, you can get whatever you want. But actually, if you're poor, you know, your access to this drug is going to be far less. So I think this is right. I think this is good. I think you need the safeguards in place.
Which is what?
Well, you know, if you've got someone who has a history of certain types of mental health, maybe, or eating disorders, like those, you know, those safe. And I couldn't tell you what all of those safeguards need to be, but I do think you need to have some safeguards in place. But ultimately, look, this could radically transform the problems of obesity in this country, and that impacts on worklessness, mental health, all of these things. So,
and life expectancy, the kind of life that you're able to enjoy, the quality of life.
100.
It's good for your heart, your bones, as you quite rightly say, your mental health. Lots and lots of positives. I wonder whether Wilfred likes the idea of people having access.
I'm going to be unpopular here, you know, because I just don't like the route of people going to get an injection in order to sort out their obesity problem. Let me try and put it this way. It's a bit like the crisis we used to have. Back in my day, the big thing was all about smoking. That we all understood that smoking was bad for you, and then we were educated to give up smoking. Obesity is not good for you. What we need to do is that we need to educate people that they have to get the self-discipline in terms of what they eat, in terms of exercise, rather than relying on a job to do it for you. What I think is far more important is to try and get to the psychological reasons why people overeat. Is to spend a lot more time trying to help them get the self-discipline that is needed. Because you don't go and get a jab every month or whatever it is to stop smoking. It's fine to have something to aid you come off this addiction. And, you know, obesity comes back because you can't stop eating and you're not doing enough sort of exercise. So I just don't think it's going to fix the problem. And I wouldn't be surprised, you know, 5-10 years down the road, we suddenly find out this miracle drug has this side effects that people regret.
Well, let's discuss it with a doctor.
Okay.
So Dr. Philippa Kay joins us down the line. Dr. Philippa, this would make these weight loss jabs available to people who at the moment can't get them because they can't afford to pay for them privately. It would make inroads almost instantly in areas and in places where obesity is an enormous problem, you know, bigger than an epidemic in its proportions. Do you think this sounds like a good idea?
I think that improving access to medications like this is a phenomenal idea, but I need to challenge a few of the things that have already been said. First of all, it is not available currently in this way, and they're talking about a trial of it, and it still won't be available over the counter like plasters are. You know, when you go into the pharmacy and some things are behind the counter and you have to ask for them. So that might be something, I don't know, an antifungal shampoo, you have to ask for it and you get a couple of questions, and other things you have to have a consultation with the pharmacist with. And this would be something that you would have to have a consultation with a pharmacist about, and they take you to a little private room. So it's not going to be quite as available as just simply over the counter. And you would still have to meet the NHS criteria, which are different to those about how it's available privately. So you'd have to have a body mass index of over 35 or over 30 with another health condition, perhaps something like high blood pressure. And just to respond, I wish that obesity was as simple as people who can't stop eating. It is far more complicated than that, and it involves hundreds and hundreds of genes that affect everything from appetite, how quickly you eat, how full you feel, and the food choices that you make. And it is not as simple as eat less and move more. And every person who has obesity who I've ever met has tried every single diet in the world, is well aware of the consequences of having that obesity. And so it's really simplistic to sort of just imply that it's as easy as that. These medications are life-changing.
Dr. Philippa, what do we know, though, at the moment about the long-term implications? Because it all feels pretty new, it feels pretty recent, and we all know of people, especially big Hollywood stars, who are no longer as big. They're still huge stars, but they're half the size they were before. Some of us have met people in our private lives who always have struggled with their weight. Now they're on these weight loss jabs. They're slim, they're fit, they're smiling. They say they feel better than they've ever felt in their lives. But do we know about the long-term implications?
So, first of all, we know about the long-term implications of yo-yo dieting. And it's really important to be honest with people and say, if you have obesity, and here I don't mean a couple of pounds, half a stone overweight, I'm talking about a significant amount above a healthy body mass index, that when you lose weight on a diet, and it might come off, it then goes back on, and actually probably some more. And the impact of that yo-yo dieting is really significant. We've been using medications like this for a long, long time for type 2 diabetes. So we do have some research in terms of long-term use. But actually how they're being recommended by NICE currently in the UK is actually only for a period of a couple of years, at the same time as all of that weight loss management advice about diet and exercise, so that when you have been kickstarted and lost some of the weight, that ideally would be able to keep it off. Everything in medicine is a balance of risk versus benefit, of side effects versus benefit. And for many people, this would come down in terms of benefit.
One of the things we hear about, Dr. Philippa, and I know it's not condoned by the medical establishment, but one of the things we hear about is people who quite want to lose that stubborn last half a stone, who want to be beach body ready, who are going to a big event, and they somehow manage to get hold of these weight loss jabs, and they certainly don't have a body mass index over 35. They're definitely not obese. They just want to trim down a bit. How do you as a doctor feel about that?
I think, firstly, if you've got a body, it's ready for the beach. Let's start with that. We're talking about health here, not about aesthetics. Yeah. And that's really important. And as we've talked about before, that risk-benefit ratio changes if you've only got a little bit to lose and that you don't have the health risks associated with obesity. But actually, this new trial, potentially, of having weight loss jabs in pharmacies, potentially might be safer than people who were doing it online. And up until recently, were just able to put in their numbers and didn't even have to show their faces. Now you'd be having to go and see somebody, and there would be safeguards in place. There would be conversations about mental health conditions and other medications that you might be on to check that it is safe. So I think that we are talking here about using a medication for people who are already at risk. And in particular, this trial is talking about putting it into areas where there is huge socioeconomic need, and that unfortunately often leads to a rise in obesity and all the health problems that that then has. So I think that with the right safeguards, this really makes a difference to people's lives.
Dr. Philippa, thank you so much. Let's go straight to Nadia. She's on the line in Nottinghamshire. Nadia, you've had experience, you've been on the weight loss jab. Tell me what it was like, and has it worked for you?
They did work for so long. I was on the tablets, which was prescribed by my GP.
Yeah.
I then paid for the weight loss jabs, and they started to work. I was 23 stone.
Gosh.
But the minute you stop taking them, the weight comes back on and more. So I stopped taking them, and I went over and had a gastric sleeve in Turkey. I then went from 23 stone down to just over 9 stone.
Wow.
My health improved massively, but I was then diagnosed with malnutrition. So I was put on different tablets. But I got taken off tablets for blood pressure. I was pre-diabetic. I'm not that anymore. I lost lots of weight. However, the depression kicks in because the downside of it is that you end up with excess skin, flabby skin on your waist, your thighs, your arms, and there is no NHS doctor will take this skin off.
Right.
So you get depressed because you're left with baggy, saggy skin. My face went from being a 55-year-old to looking more like a 70-year-old woman.
Oh.
I was lucky in the fact that I had a facelift. My husband paid for that.
Wow.
So I look now a lot younger, but the rest of my body is just saggy skin.
What a story. This is a real kind of story of one thing after another. Nadia, I thought you were going to say, I lost all this weight, I feel so much better, it's absolutely great, I'm not pre-diabetic, I haven't got high blood pressure, I'm living happily ever after. But no, so much more complicated, which absolutely confirms what Wilfred said earlier about the profound and complicated psychological implications of overeating and obesity. It isn't just because you're hungry, it's lots of other stuff. You're absolutely right. Nadia, punchline of this conversation, if you had your time all over again, would you embark on a course of weight loss jabs, or would you rather just stay as you were at 23 stone?
I think I would have rather stayed big because of the psychological effects of the shape of your body after the weight loss jabs.
You stayed.
Wow, I wouldn't mind you coming into the studio one day and coming sit on my pink sofa and have a good chat about this, because what a story you've just told us. Thank you so much. Thank you for being so honest. Let's talk to Claire in West Yorkshire. Claire, have you tried the weight loss jab?
I have, yeah. I've literally just come off them 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
But that was just literally because the cost is crippling. It's so high.
How much is it? About £200 a month, something like that?
You can normally get like discount vouchers and stuff, but it's normally around 140 to 150 a month. But obviously, I was 24 stone. I lost 6 stone on the injections. I've managed to maintain my weight so far, but I am actually on the bariatric list for bariatric surgery, and I'm in between on whether I should go back on the injections and just do it this way, or to have the actual surgery.
Let me ask you something, Claire. So you heard what Wilfred had to say at the beginning of the programme. You know, what people have got to do is they've got to be educated, he said, and they've got to learn discipline, and they've got to learn just not to overeat, not to eat so much. Did you overeat because nobody told you should be exercising and moving more and eating less, or do you think you overate for other reasons? Why were you doing it?
I think there's a lot of different reasons. I had a lot of issues. My husband was ill. My son has got autism. And so a lot of it was out of convenience and stress, emotional eating, things like that. But as well, I just want to add, the injection is not a quick fix. It's really not. You have to. I had to calorie count. I had to put the exercise in. So it is a lifestyle change. Yeah. The injection just suppresses your appetite, so you can't physically eat as much, and so you do have to. It's not just you inject yourself and it's gone. You have to put the work in. You have to exercise.
If you could just go to your local pharmacy and pay the cost of a NHS prescription, $9.99 or whatever, to get it, would you do that? Would you be happy to do that?
Absolutely, yeah. Because obviously as well, is you're doing it slowly. It's only like £1 or £2 a week, whereas obviously with the bariatric surgery, it just stops. You know, you've got the implications of the bariatric surgery is you're on liquids for 2 to 3 weeks, and then again, like you said, with the excess skin, and you've got to take supplements every day and things like that. So that's a total lifestyle change. But now you're doing it slowly with the injections. Yeah. You are still eating, you are still getting your nutrients, you are still, and I'm exercising more than I ever have before in my life.
Lovely to talk to you, and thank you, and very good luck with whatever happens next. Thank you very much. This is so complicated, as you can see.